It's Talking Sports with CJ and Fonz on SportsSlamRadio.com. It's sports hardcore and fully uncensored. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Talking Sports with CJ and Fonz on this October 24th night, 2012. I'm in the house by myself tonight. Fonz is sick, and I'm not feeling good myself, so I'm going to have to put on a Jordan-esque performance tonight and take this show to the top. First thing I want to get into, of course, on Monday night, the Chicago Bears, those mighty Chicago Bears, looked impressive defensively, at least, with a 13-7 victory over the hated Detroit Lions to go 5-1 on the season. The schedule is opening up for the Bears. Next two games, the Bears get to play play Carolina, Tennessee, and then a big, huge Sunday night game on November 11th against the Houston Texans, which is going to be a big game in Soldier Field. Bears, Cutler went down. If you missed the game, Sue picked him up. WWE body slammed him to the ground. Cutler got right up. So any of you critics who want to keep ripping Cutler, saying he's not a tough quarterback, he doesn't get up, well, you're ignorant because you don't watch Bears games. Cutler always gets up. The only way he didn't get up was in the NFC title game a couple years ago when he tore his knee. But that's understandable. When you're a quarterback, you tear your knee. You're not going to play. So Cutler is a tough quarterback. Get off him. We're 5-1. All your critics can be quiet now because the Bears are the second best team in the NFC. So like it or not, Bears are here to stay. Lions turned over the ball 4 times. 2 costly turnovers in the red zone. My boy Brian Urlacher knocking the ball out of Bell, the running back's hands. That was a huge fumble. It basically changed the momentum Bears' way. And Charles Tillman, who was named Defensive Player of the Week for the second time this season, was totally, Megatron had 3 catches, 34 yards, no touchdowns. He was on him like flies on crap. Just a great performance by Tillman. And he's getting better with age. The Bears' defense is getting better with age. We see Lance Briggs getting better. Urlacher's knees healed. Charles Tillman is looking better. And this team is a scary team if the offense can get going. The Lions, on the other hand, they've lost 4 out of 5. Nate Burleson broke his leg. They're in a heap of trouble. I can't see them making the playoffs. I think they've been a disappointment. Jim Schwartz, I don't know if he'll keep his job if they don't get it going. They are in trouble. Stafford's not the same quarterback. They don't really have a running game, and they're in 4th place in the NFC North right now. And Green Bay and Minnesota are better teams at the moment. This Bears defense reminds me of the 2000 Ravens right now. They're flying around the ball. They're hitting people. They're knocking the ball out, turnovers, takeaways. They're keeping teams to low scoring totals. This reminds me of the Ravens 2000 defense, and they're only going to get better. If Cutler and Marshall can keep up the connection, Forte runs the ball hard, and the offensive line holds up, the Bears are going to be a dangerous football team. Atlanta, they got a great offense, but let's see when you play that Bears defense. We'll see if it's a different story, and bring on Green Bay in December. I can't wait for the rematch. You might have embarrassed us on Thursday Night Football in Week 2, but in December, cold Soldier Field, Aaron Rodgers, you're going to be in for some pain. I'm telling you, that defensive line is going to be all over you. You know how Pepper's hits feel, so you'll be feeling some more. The team the Bears play over the weekend, the Carolina Panthers, have been a never disappointing team. They're 1-5. They fired their GM, Marty Hurney, on Monday. He's been the GM since 2002. He was the GM when the Panthers went to the Super Bowl against the Patriots in 2003, 2004. And he was behind the team that went to the NFC title game in 2005, 2006 that beat my Bears in the second round. He was the GM of that team, and they need a change. Cam Newton came out and said something had to change after that loss to Dallas on Sunday, and they made the change. And Cam Newton, I hate to say it, I know his team is not rallying around him, but he's regressed this year. And some critics are saying that he could be another Vince Young, who had a great rookie year and just faded out. I don't see that happening. I think Newton's way more talented than Young. And I really think they're just this is a bad season. I don't know if they can recover. And the last thing they want to do is go into Chicago on Sunday to play the 5-1 Chicago Bears. In 2008, Hurney he doubled down on Jake Delhomme's contract. He messed up drafting Jimmy Clausen, who was a bust. He overpaid for Jonathan Stewart and DeAngelo Williams. A lot of bad moves the last few years that really cost the Carolina Panthers, and they haven't recovered. I mean, they had a decent season last year, but it started on opening day against the Bucs. They're not the same team, and I don't know if they're going to recover this season, but I don't know who's more of a disappointing. If you want to call in and argue who's the biggest disappointment in the NFC, do you think it's the Detroit Lions? Do you think it's the Carolina Panthers? You can call in at 727-493-2055. Another team I want to get into, moving along to the AFC now, the Pittsburgh Steelers, never die Steelers, down to their third running back over the weekend. They moved into second place in the AFC North. They're basically breathing down the Ravens' necks right now. They're 3-3. The Bengals 3-4 now. Bad performance by Andy Dalton, and the Steelers have now improved to 12-2 at Pearl Brown Stadium, so they own the Bengals on the road. And I mean, it was just a great performance by Jonathan Dwyer, the third string back. 122 yards. He looked like Bettis running the ball. I don't know if Steeler fans want to comment, but Dwyer was just pounding the ball, looking like shades of Jerome Bettis. I mean, he's a big back. And, I mean, when he's your third string back, that's not a bad thing, having Jonathan Dwyer as your third string back. And I don't think the Steelers are done yet. Time will tell. The Ravens look pretty bad over the weekend. Ray Lewis is out. Terrell Suggs has just come back. They're missing Ladarius Webb at corner. So Ravens got their problems. So they better be careful. The Steelers they got a great coach in Mike Tomlin. And for the Bengals, though, Andy Dalton having that sophomore slump last week, 14 of 28 for 105 yards, had an interception. The Bengals now, in the last two seasons, have fell to 0-6 against the Steelers and Ravens. And those are divisional games you have to win some. You have to at least go 3-3, even 2-4. 0-6 is not going to cut it. You're not going to win the division. You barely are going to get in the playoffs like they did last year. And the Bengals, I don't know. They're a decent football team, but I wouldn't put them in the class of the Steelers or Ravens right yet. They're definitely better than the Browns in that division, but the Bengals, they have question marks, and I just don't know how Marvin Lewis keeps his job every year. That's the one thing I can't believe. I mean, he's been on a hot seat for like 6 years now, and he always manages to make the playoffs when you think they're done, but I don't think it's going to happen this season. Another team I want to get into is my co-host's team, Fonz, the New England Patriots, who basically came through for once in a close game. They almost gave it away. Devin McCourty fumbled a kickoff, which led to a Jets field goal, and the Jets almost stole that game, but New England hung in there. They tied the game. It went into overtime. Rob Ninkovich and Jermaine Cunningham sacked Sanchez in overtime to knock the ball out. Patriots win. They blew another double-digit lead. They had a fourth-quarter lead again. They got to get that going, and Laurent Landry of the Jets basically ripped New England. He said, "We beat ourselves." New England didn't do much to win that game. They didn't do anything special, I think was his quote. So, I mean, New England's got to get it going. But these close games, I think, are only going to make them better. They're playing all these close games, and when you have Tom Brady as your quarterback and the hoodie, Bill Belichick as your head coach, never count the Patriots out. I still think, as good as Houston played, New England is still the team to beat in my eyes because of one man, Tom Brady. Gronkowski's great. We know that. The running game has been good this year with Ridley, but Tom Brady he's the best. I mean, Drew Brees is great. Aaron Rodgers is great, but I still would want Tom Brady starting my team, starting a Super Bowl game. Some people might say Eli Manning because he owns Brady, but Tom Brady has proved it, and he's first ballot Hall of Famer. I mean, he's if you'd say about Joe Montana, you'd want him to start a game. One big game, it'd be Joe Montana. And he didn't have the flashiest numbers of all time, but he won. It's all about winning. It's about rings, championships, dynasties, and Brady's part of one of them. The funniest thing I found about the Patriot game, though, if my viewers were listening, Jim Nantz basically blew the call, who's usually great on football and golf coverage and basketball, college basketball. He said, basically, the Jets had scored a stunning victory over the Patriots when the Patriots won, and just an embarrassing situation. And I don't know if you guys saw it. It was just funny. And the Jets, I don't know what to think. Rex Ryan, I noticed he's finally quieting down a little bit. He's basically admitted that Bill Belichick is the best coach in the NFL, and it's about damn time. I mean, when he came in, he was so cocky, arrogant. He said Bill Belichick is going to have to what do you say? I'm not gonna kiss Bill Belichick's rings. If you guys want to get into the Jets Patriots rivalry, the feud, you can call in tonight at 727-493-2055. We're going to get now into a little college football. I'm going to get back into NFL and picks later on, but let's get into college football. We're going to get into a little bit of college football because tonight on my show, I have on Vince Ferrara from Knoxville, Tennessee, the sports animal in Knoxville, Tennessee. He was at the Vols game, Tennessee Vols game on Saturday when they got blown out by Alabama. He's going to talk. We're going to talk about the job status for Derek Dooley. We're going to talk about Alabama. We're going to get into the Gator talk for all you Gator fans. If Driscoll, is he the real deal? We're also going to get into LSU and what the heck's going on with Auburn, how they fell off the map in 2 years. I can't believe it. Less than 2 years ago, they were national champions, and now they haven't won an SEC game. So Auburn has really fell off the map, and I think it's because of Cam Newton. I didn't realize how much he meant to that Auburn team, and it shows because they're bad. And I'm wondering if Auburn coach Gene Chislak if he's going to make it this year. I mean, he's on the hot seat. Every single thing's going wrong in his life. His mom passed away. His Auburn team is bad. He's on the hot seat, and he was just the toast of town back 2 years ago. They beat Alabama. They came from behind in that game in the Iron Bowl. Won the national championship against Oregon, but we'll see what's going to happen with Auburn at the end of the season because they're not even going to a bowl game this year. First, I want to get into a team we never talk about on this program, the Kansas State Wildcats, led by Bill Snyder. He's been impressive. He came out of retirement about 4 or 5 years back. They moved to number 3 in the BCS, passing Oregon. The second straight week, Oregon's been leapfrogged in the BCS. They destroyed West Virginia 55-14 on the road. It was just an embarrassment. And I'm starting to believe in Colin Klein. This kid is slowly but surely becoming a hopeful for the Heisman. He's putting up eye-popping numbers. He was ranked 106th among quarterbacks heading into college, so he wasn't even highly recruited. No big Division I programs really recruited him. There was one small school that recruited him, but Kansas State, he jumped on, and he's become a great quarterback. We don't know if he's going to be a great NFL quarterback. I mean, we've seen some Kansas State quarterbacks. We saw Michael Bishop in the late 90s. He was a great Kansas State quarterback, and then he turned out to be bad in the NFL. So Kansas State's not one school. They're not one to basically develop quarterbacks in the NFL level, but Kansas State's for real. I mean, and the scary part right now is the toughest part of their schedule is done for Kansas State. So they could make a stake because right now they're number 3. Oregon's 4, but Oregon could lose. Oregon's still going to play USC. They still going to play in the Pac-12 title game. And then you also have Notre Dame. They have a big game this weekend against Oklahoma on the road, which is going to be, I don't know if they're going to win that game. So they could fall. And basically Florida and Alabama they're going to have to play each other eventually in the SEC title game. So one of them's going to fall. So as long as Kansas State keeps winning, I think they'll be playing Alabama or Florida for the national championship. And I don't see them winning. I honestly think they'd get rolled because the SEC, I'm just a big SEC fan. It's a real deal conference, the best athletes, speed, power, athleticism. I mean, look at some of the guys that it's produced. Look at the Gators, Percy Harvin. I mean, look how amazing he's been this year. Fast, it's about speed. And SEC is going to keep winning until a conference can somehow develop players better. I mean, the Pac-12 is doing a better job. Big 12 actually. It's more of there's no defense in the Big 12, just offense if you're a Big 12 follower. And the Big 10 is size, pounding the ball. But those teams always get steamrolled by the SEC schools. So in the ACC, we're not even going to get into that. I mean, that's just John Feinstein actually wrote a great column a couple weeks ago about the demise of the ACC. It's a great read, and he's so true. Florida State, it's just they were supposed to be great, and then they go and blow a 16-0 lead in NC State. Miami's terrible. They're never going to recover from their heyday when they were great in the 80s. And then you got teams like NC State. I'm not sold on Clemson. They lost to Florida State. I'm just not a big ACC person. I think it's boring football. SEC is way better. As long as Notre Dame's not playing, I'm watching the SEC. And Florida was the real deal over the weekend. They destroyed South Carolina. Turnovers killed the Gamecocks. And Florida, they're going to be dangerous. I like Jeff Driscoll a lot. He's only 19. He can run the ball. He can throw the ball. They got a running game. It's just they're a dangerous football team right now. And the offensive line is actually starting to come together too now. They struggled early on in the season against Texas A&M, and they're starting to look good. And the next team I want to get into, actually one more note on Kansas State. If they do make a BCS Bowl, this will be their first BCS Bowl since 2004. So it's been a while. So we'll have to see what they do if they can manage to keep winning and get into a BCS game. Next team I want to talk about is my Notre Dame Fighting Irish. They had a scare. They survived BYU over the weekend, winning 17-14. They should have destroyed BYU, but the defense actually looked a little normal at times. Notre Dame is 7-0. It's the best start in a decade. That was actually Ty Willingham's team, I believe, in 2002. So this is their best start since 2002. Theo Riddick had a huge game, 143 yards. I believe Woods had 105 yards. So they combined. Notre Dame rushing game was 270 yards total rushing. So they pounded the ball down the BYU Cougars' mouth. And Notre Dame, after going 17 quarters, their defense, after going 17 quarters without giving a touchdown up, they gave up 2 offensive touchdowns in a span of, 12 minutes and 18 seconds. I'm sorry. 12 minutes, 18 seconds. They gave up 2 touchdowns. So Notre Dame they didn't look invincible on defense. And I think they're going to have their hands full this weekend going into Norman to play the Oklahoma Sooners. Sooners lost the game this early this season to Kansas State. They're not out of the national title picture yet. They're going to need a little help. They're kind of on the fringe of making a title game, kind of like LSU, Florida State, which they would need a lot of help, but those teams are on the fringe. Even USC. But Oklahoma makes a statement this weekend. They're gonna be to talk about. Notre Dame has to win, keep it going. Notre Dame has to run the table to be in the national title game. There's no doubt about that. And if they do run the table, they've earned it. Notre Dame will have to play Oklahoma, USC. They still got to play. They beat Stanford. I'm trying to think. They beat Michigan. They beat Michigan State. So 2 of the big games are going to be Oklahoma and USC, and they struggle against USC. So that's not going to be an easy game. And we'll see about that game. USC's beatable. I'm not sold on Matt Barkley, not after that Stanford game. You guys want to comment on the BCS? Both those Florida Gators giving the chomp tonight for my Gator listeners. You can call in the show at 727-493-2055. You want to call? I notice I'm not hearing any Bears critics tonight. The Crickets are out here in Tampa Bay. But I was actually speaking of Tampa Bay, I was at the Bucs game on Sunday. Saw the Bucs play the Saints. Finally, Bucs fans showed up. Well, actually, it was 60-40. 40% were Saints fans, but great game. I give the Bucs credit. I know I rip them at times. I rip the fans. They should have won that game. They blew a 14-0 lead, blew a 21-7 lead. Vincent Jackson's cat packed it up because he catches a 95-yard pass and he can't break it. He gets chased down. He was running like a tight end up the sideline. Got chased down, and it turned out to be the game-changing play. Malcolm Jenkins chased him down, tripped him up. 4 plays later, the Bucs went for it on 4th down. They couldn't get it in. And how do you tell me that? How can LeGarrette Blount not get in from a yard out? 1 yard. Mike Allstott would have pushed that pile. Blount, I don't understand. You're 250 pounds. You have to score. And the play calling's got to change, too. You run 3 straight runs, and then you run a quarterback bootleg with Freeman that went nowhere. He got knocked out of bounds. Just bad play calling. I question the play calling. I'm questioning if Schiano has faith in Freeman at times. If Mike Sullivan has faith in Freeman at times, I question it because Freeman is not a bad quarterback. He threw for 420 yards over the weekend. He's not a great quarterback. I think he's more of a game manager quarterback, but I don't think he's a bad quarterback, and I think Schiano's afraid at times to unleash him. We saw it in the Cowboys game. We saw it Sunday, and you have to do it. You can't play conservative. And, and missing Talib was huge. I knew that was going to happen. Talib not playing corner. The Saints ate up the Bucs defense offensively. Drew Brees was throwing dart after dart. And the Saints are 2-4 going into Denver on Sunday night. I believe it is Sunday. Yep, Sunday night. So that's going to be a big game. Back to college football now. I want to get back into Oklahoma. If the big thing is going to be if Golson, what he can do for Notre Dame. Tommy Rees started for Notre Dame. He went 6 of 7 in the first quarter, and then he had 7 straight incomplete passes. The Irish barely threw in the second half. They didn't trust Rees. Golson's good, but he's kind of like, I don't know. He takes too many hits, and that's dangerous. He He can't keep running the ball. He does it in the NFL. If he ever makes it to the level, he's going to get hurt. SRG3. And Notre Dame, I mean, looking at the picks, that's the first pick I'm going to pick on for Saturday is the number 5 Irish going into Norman to play number 8 Oklahoma. And I'm going, I hate to say it, I'm an Irish fan, but I got to pick Oklahoma. It's going to be the first big road test of the season for the Irish. Notre Dame's quarterback situation worries me a little bit. That's why I'm taking Oklahoma. Oklahoma's averaging, the big storyline is going to be Oklahoma's offense that's averaging 30 points a game against Notre Dame's defense. If this game was played in South Bend, I'd maybe go Notre Dame, but it's in Norman, and I'm going to have to go Oklahoma. I mean, I think it's going to be a close game. It's a big primetime game. I believe Brent Musburger and Kirk Herbstreit are going to be calling the game, and it's going to be loud there. Norman's a loudest big college football town, and it's going to be loud there, and it's going to be a fun game to watch Saturday night. Another game I want to get into is number 13 Mississippi State goes into Tuscaloosa to play the number 1 Alabama Crimson Tide. The Alabama Crimson Tide looking dominant, like always. And one thing Mississippi State, they cause a lot of turnovers. They're averaging 3 turnovers a game on defense. And Dan Mullen, the ex-Gator offensive coordinator, he's turned them around in Starkville. I mean, they have to be happy at Mississippi State. They're a competitive program. Sylvester Croom couldn't turn that program around. Mullen comes in, he changes it. And they're going to be, I don't think they can beat Alabama. I'd be shocked. I'll be shocked if it's close. Alabama's the real deal. The only team I think that has a chance of beating them is the Gators. And I still don't think that's going to happen. Alabama's a head above the rest. It's that dominant. They're better than they were last season. And they're just getting better. And A.J. McCarron's turned out to be a great quarterback. And, I mean, Nick Saban is, as much as you hate him, he's cocky. He's like Belichick too. He worked under Belichick in Cleveland, and he's a great football coach. And there's rumors coming out of Cleveland that they might go after Saban. He was I don't know if it was coordinator or a linebackers coach at the Browns in the mid-'90s, but his rumors have it the Browns could go after him or John Gruden, which will be interesting. They fired Holmgren, the GM, president, and it looks like the coach is gone too. I can't see him surviving. It was Pat Shurmur. I can't see him surviving that team this season. They're bad. So, but back to Saban. I mean, I think he's best to stay in a college game. He went to Miami. It didn't work out. He went back to, went to Alabama, and you see what he's done with programs in college. Michigan State. Never won them a national title, but turned that program around. Won a national title with the LSU Tigers. Won the national title twice with Alabama, possibly a 3rd time this season. So he's the best coach in college football right now. Moving along now, I want to get into some baseball. And tonight, actually in about 15 minutes, is Game 1 of the World Series. Those streaky San Francisco Giants, they were down 0-2 to the Reds. They were down 3-1 to the Cardinals. They turned it up in both series, and now they're going for their 2nd World Series championship in 3 years. They played the Detroit Tigers, who last went to the World Series in 2006. They lost in 5, I believe, to the Cardinals. Last World Series title was that 84 dominant team led by Jack Morris, Kirk Gibson, Lou Whitaker, Alan Trammell, Sparky Anderson managing that last great team. And I don't know. I'm going to get into my pick in a minute. I want to go over the showdown first. Tonight we see Barry Zito go against Justin Verlander. I give the edge to the Tigers. Verlander is amazing. He's who I want on the mound in a World Series game. This October, he's 3-0 with a 0.74 ERA, 25 strikeouts. I mean, he is lights out. The guy can throw 140 pitches a game and not throw his arm out, which is amazing. And I believe he's going with Kate Upton, which is very impressive. So life is good for Justin Verlander right now, And if they win the World Series, life will be grand. As for the Cardinals, down 3-0. The Giants, I'm sorry. Cardinals should have won. The Giants were down 3-1. They're a resilient baseball team. They rallied down 2-0, like I said, against the Reds, 3-1 against the Cardinals. And, it was just, what was amazing was the Giants outscored the Cardinals from games 5 through game 7, 20-1. That's domination. They beat up on Lance Lynn. They beat up on all the Cardinals pitching. And Cardinals they didn't have it this year, but not to take nothing away from them because they were a great story. But the Giants, on the other hand, the one player that has to step up, and it's not Lincecum because he's not in the rotation, it's Madison Bumgarner. He needs to step up. He won 16 games in the regular season. In the playoffs, he has an 11.25 ERA. He's pitching game 2. Especially if they lose game 1 at home to Verlander and the Tigers, he's going to have to step up in game 2 and beat Doug Fister. So that's going to be interesting. He's the big question mark. For the Tigers, it rides with Verlander and their bullpen. Valverde's got to get it going. He was bad in the ALCS. He got benched. Jim Leyland said he's going to go back to Valverde, and he's going to get chances to close the game. If not, you have Philip Koch, the ex-Yankee. You have Benoit, the ex-Rays. But Valverde's got to nail it down. Especially in pressure situations, which are going to be in this game. I don't think there's going to be many blowouts in this World Series. So we're going to see what happens with that. Now to the actually, I'll make my World Series pick, and I'm going to go with the Detroit Tigers. Believe it or not, this was my World Series pick back in March. I'm not lying. I took the Giants and Tigers. If I can find the paper, I will bring it in. But I took the Tigers to beat the Giants in the World Series, and I'm sticking with it. I'm going to say 6 games. I just think Verlander, especially if he can go 2 or 3 starts, it's going to be too much for the Giants. And I think they're going to win in 6. I think Giants will get a split in the first 2, and then the Tigers will take care of business at home. But the Cardinals now, they choked it away. 3 games to 1. Great story. They would have never made the baseball playoffs if it wasn't for the new rule, the new wild card added. And they outscored 20-1 from games 5 to 7. That's a choke. And some people are comparing this choke to the Yankees choking against the Red Sox in 2004. I don't think it's that bad. It was 3-1, not 3-0, but this was a choke. And believe it or not, I think it was I was reading the Cardinals in 96 in the NLCS were outscored 32-1 against the Braves in the NLCS in the last 3 games. So, and that was a La Russa coach team. Kyle Loesch was hit hard in Game 7. Matt Cain was amazing. He's turned out to be the ace of the San Francisco Giants rotation. And it just fell apart. And I think the turning point of that series was Friday night. Lance Lynn's errant throw got it going, and Cardinals never recovered, and that was Game 5. And it just rolled right into Game 6 and 7. Giants went home. They were confident in front of their home crowd, cold, usually in San Francisco, rain, and they won in the rain on Monday night. I didn't see much of Game 7. I was watching my Bears. Bears are first over the debate over the NLCS, but I saw highlights, and Cardinals have nothing to be ashamed about. No one predicted they were going to make it this far. They had to replace Tony La Russa with Mike Matheny, who never managed before. They had to replace Pujols. Lance Berkman was hurt, so Carlos Beltran got hurt at the wrong time for the Cardinals. But they have nothing to be ashamed about. And they're a team that's in the playoffs every season. Unfortunately for a Cubs fan, I have to say that. And they're still going to be a dangerous team. We're going to get into some more baseball in a second. We got Vince Ferrara coming on tonight at 8:05 to talk some SEC football, the best conference in college football. You want to call the show, and you want to talk NFL, college football, World Series, even NBA, which starts a week from Tuesday night, last night. So they start next Tuesday with a Heat, Celtics, Mavericks, Lakers doubleheader. You guys want to talk NBA? You can call the program at 727-493-2055. Boy, we're going to have to start playing the cricket sounds for all the Bears haters tonight. All the Bears haters who were talking trash about Cutler in week 2. I'm going to laugh if the Bears are hoisting up the trophy, the Vince Lombardi trophy in New Orleans, Super Bowl night, and Jay Cutler's on the cover of Sports Illustrated. I'm going to frame that. I'm going to bring that right on the show and put it right behind me. I'm going to blow it up like one of those fat heads and put it right behind me, just to rub it into all you Cutler haters. Because get used to it, because he's going to just get better. The offense, it's under a new system with Mike Tice. They're just going to get better. And when you have Brandon Marshall, who is a beast. What was Miami thinking, giving up 2 third-round draft picks for him? Just embarrassing for Miami. That was bad. And thank you, Miami, though. Thanks for the early Christmas present. Speaking of Miami, let's get into the baseball team in Miami, the Marlins, who fired outspoken manager Ozzie Guillen yesterday. Shocked me. They gave him all this money. He still has 3 years remaining on a 4-year, $10 million contract. And, Jeffrey Loria, he loves to fire managers. I believe he fired Girardi after he won Manager of the Year. He fired Freddie Gonzalez. Those were 2 guys that were in the playoffs this season as managers for the Yankees and Braves, respectively. And Guillen was just, what hurt him was the whole Castro comments, the beginning of the season. Then he got into it with Heath Bell, who was traded. And, now Guillen gone, I think Larry Beinfest, the president, he might be on the hot seat. So they built that new stadium. They were 16th in attendance. They finished last. I believe it was their worst finish for the Marlins since '99, and that's not going to get it done. And with Ozzie, when you're winning and you're making jokes and you're ripping people apart, it's good. But when you're losing and you're in last place, it gets old very quick, and that's what happened. It's a big different story. When he was winning the World Series for the White Sox and he was ripping columnists and being funny and going on Twitter ripping people, it was funny. It was fun and games. Everybody was laughing. But when you're not winning, media will turn on you like a pit bull. So that's what happened to Ozzie. So he's done. He'll find a job. The guy won the World Series in '05. He did great with the White Sox. He will be managing in a couple of years. There's no doubt about that. Somebody will hire Ozzie Guillen. I think he's a good manager. I really do. I don't know if I want to call him great, but I'll tell you, Dale Swaim. I mean, I like him on the Cubs, but I would take Ozzie. I mean, Ozzie knows how to fire the team up, and it didn't work in Miami. It's bad fan base. I knew, even building a new stadium, it's still the fan base. Miami's a bad sports town. I'm sorry if any Miami listeners are listening. You show up at halftime at Heat games unless they're in the playoffs. Dolphins, all I see is orange seats when I'm watching a Dolphin game on TV. And I mean, I remember the Bears went to Miami a couple years ago, Thursday night football game. It sounded like it was in Chicago. I mean, that's embarrassing. I mean, Miami, the history, undefeated team, Dan Marino, Mark Duper, Mark Clayton, the history, Don Shula. I mean, you got to show up. You got to be good, true sports fans. And Florida sometimes is lacking that, unfortunately. Now to a team that hired a new manager. They had to actually trade for him. The Boston Red Sox traded for Toronto Blue Jays ex-manager John Farrell, signed him to a 3-year deal. At this point, was it a great hire? I think so. Anybody's better than Bobby Valentine at this point. I mean, he is just pathetic. He's still talking. Guy got fired. Shut up. Go home. He's talking about David Ortiz now, that he quit when his injury. He could have came back. He quit because the team was out of contention. He's ripped every star on the Red Sox. Fell off his bike tweeting. The guy's a joke. He's a laughingstock. And there's a reason why I said back in July that this guy did not have a baseball manager's job in 10 years, especially taking the New York Mets to the 2000 World Series, to the 99 NLCS, and you didn't have a job in 10 years. What's that tell you? I mean, he's a terrible analyst, and I just hope he's finally out of the game. I mean, he looked like a moron sitting in the stands with his fake mustache and glasses mask back in the late 90s for the Mets. After getting thrown out, he stayed in the dugout, wore a Halloween mask to hide, looking like a pathetic loser. And it's time to get rid of him, which I did. This hire was perfect for Boston. Farrell was the pitching coach for the 2007 Red Sox team. John Lester's happy. And, I mean, he's won a title. He's going to restore order in that clubhouse. Francona should have never been fired. Congrats to Terry Francona for getting hired by Cleveland, but he should have never got fired by Boston. And the GM, Ben Carrington, whatever, he's on the hot seat this year. So Boston's got to get it going. They can't spend this much money and be at the bottom of the AFC East. So it's got to get going, and Farrell's the right man for the job. I also want to get into Lance Armstrong. Stripped of his 7 Tour de France titles. Beat cancer, but his ego got the best of him. I think he's guilty. That's why he's not fighting it. I think it's a disappointment. I mean, I know he's not the only cyclist that were doing it. He started doing it because he felt undermanned, and he saw other cyclists around the world doing it, and that's why he started doing it. And, I mean, he was the last. He went from great American hero to fraud, and it's a sad situation. Nike dropped him. Oakley dropped him. His bike company dropped him. Energy bars, and that's it. I mean, he'll never recover. It's kind of like how Paterno, if he was alive, it's the same thing. The image is tarnished. The public turns on you. Your sponsors turn on you. We saw it happen to Tiger when his sponsors dropped him. So same thing with Lance Armstrong. And, I mean, it's too bad because I had the yellow Livestrong band. And Lance, I mean, he won't ever recover from this. One thing I want to get into before we get Vince Ferrara. Actually, I'm saying Ferrara. I'm sorry, Vince. Ferrara on the show tonight. I want to talk a little NBA. Yesterday, the GMs chose the Miami Heat to repeat. They chose LeBron to win the MVP again. Do I agree with it, being a Lakers fan? Oh, hell no. But the Heat are dangerous, and they got Ray Allen. I just think in a finals game, who's going to match up with Big Dwight Howard? I mean, Howard was a big pickup. So, I mean, the only teams I think that can beat Miami are the 2 teams out west, Oklahoma City and the Lakers. The Celtics are the only team that can probably match up with them in the East. If the Bulls had D. Rose, I'd say they could be a dangerous team against the Heat, but he's out for a while. Celtics are going to be the main challenge, and we're going to see how they're going to be without Ray Allen starting Tuesday night against the defending champions. The Lakers, on the other hand, open up against the Mavericks. No Dirk Nowitzki. Lakers, they have to win this. They don't win, go deep in the playoffs, possibly the finals, or win this, Mike Brown's gone. I mean, he almost got fired last year, and I mean, he's not going to survive this year. Rumor had it, I remember Magic Johnson said if Mike Brown didn't win Game 7 against the Nuggets in the first round, he would have been gone, and I truly believe that. Trust Magic. He's within the organization. He knows what's going on, and must-win year for Mike Brown. I was never sold on him. I think he should have won a title at Cleveland. He's always had stars around him. Unlike Phil Jackson, he's won with his stars. We actually have a call coming in. You're on the phone with Talking Sports with CJ. Just CJ tonight. Oh, okay. Well, we got to get Vince Ferrara on the phone in 2 minutes. Oh, okay. All right. So we're going to be getting Vince Ferrara on the phone. I'm solo tonight, trying to put a Jordan-esque performance. Doing this solo without my co-host Fonz, who's sick. It's also Fonz's birthday tonight, and he's sick on his birthday, so get well. And we are getting Vince Ferrara on the phone. Big SEC fan like myself.
Hey, it's Vince. Thanks for calling. Leave me a message. I'll get back to you soon.
Maybe he's trying to call us. Well, in the meantime, I'll get into some NFL picks while we get Vince on the phone. I think we're playing phone tag with Vince, but hopefully we get him on soon. Looking at some games, Week 8. We're almost halfway through the season. Week 8, actually we are, yeah, Week 8's halfway point. Thursday night, Tampa Bay goes into Minnesota. That's going to be a big game for the Bucs. They have to win this game. I don't see it happening. I think Adrian Peterson's going to have a big game. I like the Vikings Thursday night. Carolina, Chicago, the Bears should roll. One intriguing game I'm looking at is Atlanta at Philly. Atlanta's coming out of the bye week. They go into Philadelphia playing against the Eagles and their new defensive coordinator, Todd Bowles. I think he's calling it now, Nolan. Hello, Vince?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you perfect. You're on the phone with Talking Sports with CJ. I'm by myself tonight. My co-host is sick, so welcome to the program.
Hey, appreciate you having me.
Oh, no problem. You're a big SEC fan. I'm a big SEC fan. I'm going to tell a little about my viewers about you. They can follow you on Twitter at Vince Sports. Am I right?
Yep, that's correct.
And you also work for the Sports Animal in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Yeah, I host a sports talk show with the different writers and columnists from the Knoxville News Sentinel. I'm the daily host, but each day there's a different writer or columnist that joins me as a co-host. So it's a neat, different type of show to where we have different perspectives, and it's almost a different show every day. So we get to have a lot of fun and talk a lot of Tennessee football and sports, but also hit on the SEC and nationally when it warrants it as well. So definitely enjoyed that. That's 10 a.m. to noon Eastern time on sportsanimal99.com and on the WNML smartphone app that people can download on their phones there.
And I definitely want to follow you on Twitter. If you're an SEC fan, follow Vince. He knows his stuff. He's in a big football area, Knoxville. I know Tennessee's been down, but he knows his SEC football.
And I'm a Tampa guy. I graduated from USF, went to school there, and I grew up, born and raised in Tampa. So so I'm a Tampa guy through and through. So good to be on with you there in TPA.
Yeah, definitely. And what high school did you attend, if you don't mind me asking?
Jefferson.
Oh, Jefferson.
Back then we weren't good at football, but Jefferson certainly is now. So
it's amazing how Plant is a powerhouse every season. And Armwood, those two teams are like every year. James Wilder Jr. came from Plant. I mean, it's just two great. Aaron Murray, as you know, in the SEC.
Yep.
Orson Charles.
Yeah, there's no question. Orson Charles, you're right. And it's different. The landscape has changed. When I was in high school, none of those teams, or all of them, were down at that time. Plant, Armwood, all of those were down. But it's changed, and they got it rolling now.
Oh, definitely. I mean, football is so big. I mean, I'm originally from the New England area, and I can't believe the talent in this state, especially in Tampa Bay. I can't say. I mean, I know St. Thomas Aquinas is big in South Florida, but in this area, Tampa Bay, there's so many great athletes.
Well, absolutely, which is another reason why I have not understood the underachievement of the USF Bulls program.
Oh,
because even if you know this, CJ, if you don't get the number 1 or 2 pick in terms of athletes there, 3, 4, 5, and 6, those levels are still fantastic players that if you develop them, you can win with them. I thought USF has underachieved going back to Jim Leavitt when everyone was throwing praise at him across the country. I'm like, no, with all the talent there,
Oh,
you
I
should
know.
be doing more. And then now with Skip Holtz, I think they're clearly underachieved as well. So there's all kinds of talent there.
You know, I'm not behind the Fire Skip Holtz website. I know people have accused me, but I'm not behind that site. Just letting it clear in here. I know people want him out. I know the boosters. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen at the end of the season, if he keeps his job or I don't know.
Yeah, there's no paper trail for to link you back to that website, huh, CJ?
No, not at all. I'm a big Notre Dame fan. I stay out of the Big East, ACC. I'm a big Notre Dame fan and a big SEC fan. I have to watch all these huge SEC games. I love the atmosphere, the players, the talent, the speed, the athleticism. I think it's the best conference in football.
So life is good for you right now because the SEC always has the best games each weekend, or 2 of the 3 best games, and then Notre Dame is playing relevant football as well these days. So you're rolling.
Oh, finally, and I go back to Tim Brown when I was a kid, '87 team, Tony Rice. 2002 they were good 10 years ago with Ty Willingham. And it's just, I mean, they haven't won a national championship since '87. So I'm hoping if they beat Oklahoma, that's the big test. Saturday night's a big test in Norman.
Well, definitely, and Notre Dame's defense has been much better than anyone thought, but Oklahoma brings probably the best offense that Notre Dame has had to face. Love Manti Te'o, and I just think that's such an intriguing offense versus defense
Oh, I know.
matchup, and so much on the line because if Oklahoma wins that game, then Oklahoma now is relevant in terms of the national championship again, and then Oklahoma, Notre Dame would get another marquee win.
Right. No, I totally agree. We're on the phone with Vince Ferrara from Tennessee, Knoxville, sports animal. I want to get first into Tennessee, where you were at the game Saturday night in Knoxville at Neyland Stadium. Tennessee now is 1-11 in their last 12 SEC games. We saw them lose to Alabama. They got crushed 44-13. I'm going to ask you, you living in Knoxville, you know more than me. Is Derek Dooley's job in jeopardy? I know that he's under contract still.
Oh, his job absolutely is in jeopardy. There's no question. Now, the university isn't coming out and saying he has to win X amount of games or we'll reevaluate him at the end of the season. They just really haven't talked about it. But he absolutely is playing for his job right now. And I don't think there's any way, with what we've seen from this football team, I don't think there's any way they can win enough games to save Derek Dooley's job, because short of doing something completely out of characteristic for them, and that's win a meaningful game, beat a ranked team, beat someone in conference other than Vanderbilt or Kentucky, and Kentucky didn't even happen last year. And they just they're not mentally prepared, I think, to beat a good opponent. I don't think they're coached well enough to beat a good opponent. I think their talent is overrated. I think their stars don't play like stars. So I don't see, short of winning their last 5 games and doing it in impressive fashion, and nothing they've shown us would lead us to believe that that's going to happen. I think anything short of that will mean a coaching change at Tennessee.
You know what's interesting is they're 1-11 in their last 12 games. Do you know Vanderbilt and Kentucky has more wins in that span? That's not, Tennessee fans don't want to hear that.
Absolutely, and Derek Dooley's 4 wins in his 3 years combined. He has 4 SEC wins. He's 4-16, and 2 wins are against Vanderbilt, 1 Kentucky, 1 Ole Miss.
Yeah.
Lane Kiffin had 4 wins
in
one season in the SEC, and then you also lost to Kentucky. That embarrassment, that sped the clock for Derek Dooley, and that was a very embarrassing moment. There was a story for a website, MrSEC.com, that came out this week that Derek Dooley had to answer questions about, basically alleging from sources within the athletic department that Derek Dooley offered to step down if he got his full buyout of $5+ million. Derek Dooley said in the press conference when he was asked about it, he said that's absurd. Of course, then he cited how his high school coach used to resign at the end of every year, and then said, I don't have the courage to do that. Maybe at some point I will. So that was kind of strange, the way he answered it, but he basically said he's absurd. He'd be a DA. And he said it too, to do that. I think maybe the story is a little bit off. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe there was some sort of discussion about it. Maybe, perhaps, this is just my opinion, maybe perhaps initiated by the university and say, what's it going to take? Maybe something to that effect. But that's not a definitive. That's just a theory. If that story isn't true. And then Derek Dooley's had to answer questions about, is his team going to quit on him, all that kind of stuff. And so I think all that stuff is legitimate. Fans that want to back the university are frustrated because that's all anyone wants to talk about is fire Derek Dooley or bring in John Gruden, which is the name that fans want, which is very interesting with the tie back to Tampa. And so fans that want to defend the school can't stand hearing about firing the coach or replacing him or how bad the quarterback Tyler Bray has been. But that's real. That's what matters right now in Knoxville and the Tennessee fans. So it's really frustrating for everyone. You either hear about how bad they are and how bad the numbers are, and they are bad, TJ.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I could run through. There's some more embarrassing numbers. Or you have to, or you run away from it and don't listen to it at all.
Now, the team, the Gators here, I know a lot of Gator fans listening tonight. They looked impressive. I can't believe they blew out Spurrier and the Gamecocks in Gainesville at the Swamp. The defense is playing awesome, causing turnovers. The special teams look good. Were you shocked by this blowout of South Carolina? And can this Gator team match up with Alabama in the SEC title game if they beat Georgia on Saturday?
Well, first of all, I didn't expect Florida to be this good. I don't know anyone that really did. I think anyone that did to this level was just being wishful and was hoping. They've gotten, the thing is, you could tell they play hard for Will Muschamp and that coaching staff, and they are getting better week after week, especially on defense. And they're so good on special teams. No one ever talks about that.
No.
Christie might be the best punter in college football now. May have surpassed Brad Wing at LSU.
I agree.
He changes field position. He's able to get the right spin on the ball to down it inside the 20 or 10 or 5 even on some occasions. They're so good with their kicking game, and no one talks about that, but that's a big part of the game. That's really what set up all those turnovers on special teams. That's what set up the offense when they were up big at the half with 29 yards of total offense.
I know.
But good. And then in the second half, CJ, that's when they're their best, is the second half and the fourth quarter. Some of the bad teams and average teams in this conference and in college football, that's when they're their worst. That's when Tennessee is at its worst. And to me, that talks about toughness and coaching. And so the Florida Gators have gotten better. Now, I think Alabama overall, top to bottom, complete team, I think Alabama is better than Florida.
I totally agree with you.
But I think Florida brings a lot to the table because it can do a lot of the fundamentals, the toughness, the defense, the running game, and play well in the fourth quarter and second half. And I'll throw in a fifth. They're not scared.
No, and you've seen what they've done in the fourth quarter this year against Texas A&M on the road, against Tennessee. So if this game can go close, if they play Alabama in the SEC title game and it's close in the fourth quarter, you never know, a turnover, Gators could steal it.
Well, and then Florida can do something that a lot of teams cannot, and they can score on special teams or defense, and that helps. You don't have to have a dynamic offense when you can do those things. And what people haven't forced Alabama to do, and frankly, no one's really forced Florida to do either, and that's teams have not jumped out big with multiple scores on those two teams. They've been able to play from ahead, and those two teams, Alabama and Florida, are so dominant when they can come after you on defense with the lead, and they can pound on you with the running game. We saw it in the LSU game, like maybe the last 25 plays were run. And that's because you're playing with the lead, and that's big. So maybe one of those two teams can do that to the other and force them to have to come from 14, 17, 21 points from behind, maybe give up on the running game, be more one-dimensional. That's what no one's been able to do to them, and that would be for the Florida-Georgia game. That would be, I think, Georgia's only shot is to shock Florida out of the gate and force them to play in a different way than they've had the luxury of playing in all their other wins this year.
Now we talk. I want to stick on the Gators for a minute. Jeff Driscoll threw 4 touchdowns on Saturday. He's only 19 years old. Can he lead the Gators to the national championship this season and win the title?
Well, I think they're in position to. They could. Now, he could also be a very successful quarterback, but then the Gators may not even make it to a BCS bowl game.
Right.
Brad Edwards, who we had on our show last week, he mentioned it and has written about it, that in his latest projections that Florida could go from number 2 in the BCS rankings right now to continuing to run the table and then perhaps losing to Florida State, which I know Gators fans don't want to hear. But that's a great Seminoles team. They could lose at Florida State, and then in the SEC championship game, and with 2 losses, the Sugar Bowl could very well take someone else in the SEC when they have a pick. If the SEC champions, say Alabama, if they're in the national championship game, then the Sugar Bowl will have a pick of other SEC teams, and they may go a different route other than the Florida Gators. So I'm not predicting, I'm just saying that is still a possibility. So Jeff Driscoll's in the mix. He could lead them to the national championship. And I go back to the Texas A&M game for him. That's when he really caught my eye.
Right.
Is the way he played there. And I think a lot of people missed that second half of that Texas A&M game. And then I saw him live in Knoxville too, and the way he ran past Tennessee's defense. And,
that pass he threw off his back foot.
Yeah, and the way he throws on the run, his toughness. I'm really impressed with him. People forget that he was a highly recruited quarterback, one of the top in his class. So he's got skills. He's going to get better as a passer, but I like his intangibles, his leadership, and all the whole package. So yeah, he definitely could. I wouldn't say he's the favorite to, but he's with the work he's done, he could.
Okay, I want to move on down to LSU. They overcame a slow start on Saturday at Texas A&M in College Station. They came back to win 24-19. Does LSU have any chance of getting back to the national championship?
Oh, I think so. I don't think it's going to happen because this is still although a very talented team, I still think it's a flawed team, which has been disappointing to me because I was giving them the benefit of the doubt because of their talent week after week when they were playing sluggish and playing down to the competition and not running the football well, and Zach Mettenberger being inconsistent and all that. I still think, even though they've been able to bounce back the last couple of weeks, I still think that they have issues, and I don't think they're going to be able to win with that quarterback play, and they're just too inconsistent for me. I
agree.
Right now, I would pick Alabama to beat them in Baton Rouge. It's never easy to do. And LSU is talented enough to where if Alabama's not playing well, LSU could win that game. But LSU, to me, not only with one loss, not only do they need to continue to win, but they need to be impressive.
Right.
And I think they will fail at one, if not 2 of those areas.
Now, moving on from the great teams to mediocrity in the SEC, 2 teams that are disappointing. The Auburn Tigers, 2 years removed from the national title, and the Arkansas Razorbacks, who were a great team last year. Both teams and coach, we saw what happened with John Smith filing for bankruptcy and Bobby Petrino in Arkansas. And Auburn is just a mess right now. They haven't even won an SEC game. Who's been the more disappointment of these 2 teams, Auburn and Arkansas?
Well, first of all, CJ, Auburn Tigers fans would take mediocrity right now because that would be a huge upgrade from what they've seen. I think you have to say Auburn because Arkansas, you can point to that situation with Bobby Petrino in the offseason, and you could see it melting down. And John L. Smith was such an unknown. But with this Auburn team that's recruited so well in the last couple of years and still has some talent on its roster, that's, to me, as bad as they have been. That has been the bigger disappointment. But, hey, they have a spread zone read type of quarterback. They're trying to run in a pro set. They haven't, I think, developed enough of their talent, their highly recruited talent that's come onto their roster. And they've had a lot of guys leave the program or be kicked out of the program that were a part of those highly recruited classes. So they've had misses, they haven't been developed, and then they have a mess at quarterback. Those are not ingredients for having success in the SEC. And really losing to Ole Miss and Vanderbilt, it's reached rock bottom at Auburn. And really, you look at their schedule, there's maybe 2 wins on there left, and
Right.
that's New Mexico State and Alabama A&M. And as far as Arkansas, they've bounced back, but they've bounced back against weak competition. Could they rack up a few more wins? They could, but they're going to finish, I think, below 500, and John L. Smith is going to be gone.
Oh, yeah.
And then I think in Arkansas, maybe even Auburn, could be one of 4, who knows, even 5 teams in the SEC looking for a new coach after the season.
Be some good programs to think about.
That's right. Kentucky and Tennessee would be the other 2.
Yeah.
And then you never know if James Franklin continues to have success at Vandy, maybe someone from another conference plucks him and takes him away from Vandy, and that could be a 5th potential opening in the SEC.
True. We got a few more minutes with Vince Ferrara from the Sports Animal in Knoxville, Tennessee. I want to get into some games over the weekend in the SEC. I'm going to ask you to tell you the game and give me your prediction. First, I'm going to say Tennessee because you're from Tennessee. Tennessee at number 17, South Carolina. Is that going to be ugly?
Yeah, I think South Carolina will blow them out. I think the number was like 14. I would definitely take South Carolina. Tennessee just, to me, does not have a between the years, and I think they're starting to lose this team, and so I think South Carolina bounces back and beats Tennessee easily.
What about number 13, Mississippi State, with Dan Mullen, the ex-Gator coach, going into Alabama, Tuscaloosa, the number 1 Crimson Tide? Does Mississippi State, they do create a lot of turnovers. Defense is averaging 3 a game. Do they have any chance of keeping this close against Alabama on Saturday?
I think they do, especially early or maybe through 3 quarters. I think Mississippi State is clearly the best team that Alabama would have faced. A lot of people pointed to Tennessee last week. I think Mississippi State is much better than Tennessee. They don't beat themselves. In addition to getting turnovers, they've had games where they've had only 2 penalties. They don't turn it over. Wow. They turn you over. Tyler Russell is playing on the highest level of Mississippi State quarterback I can never remember seeing any quarterback in Mississippi State. They have playmakers on offense. They're not as stout defensively as they've been in years past, but they have 2 potential high draft picks at corner in Jonathan Banks and Darius Slay, who shut down, for the most part, Tennessee's top-notch receivers. So I think Mississippi State will be the biggest challenge for Alabama, but I think through 4 quarters, Alabama has too much. I think the Crimson Tide wins that game.
And the last game, the big game, number 3 Gators go play again in Jacksonville against the number 12 Bulldogs. Who do you like in this game? Gators win. They're in the SEC title game. Do you think they keep it rolling?
I do. Before the season, I had Georgia winning the SEC East, and Georgia has just not been consistent enough to me. And from a trust factor, to me, it's clearly the Florida Gators. Now, I think this is going to be a close game, but I believe more that what we've seen to this point, that we'll see it in this game from Florida more so than Georgia, who has played down to its competition, has had spectacular performances, has had duds. And so I believe more in the Gators. I think they're more consistent. And then the defense in the 4th quarter and the toughness, I think that's something that the Georgia Bulldogs have not shown. And so I think the Gators win in a single-digit type of game.
They hear it from guy that knows the SEC, Vince Ferrara. Follow him on Twitter at Vince Sports. I want to thank you for coming on the program. My co-host Fonz wanted to talk to you, but he was sick tonight. But it's always an honor.
Well, I appreciate it, CJ. Anytime Paisan, you just give me a call. I'll be glad to talk with you.
We us Paisan stick together.
That's right, and especially Tampa Paisan.
Oh, definitely. You're here, Tampa's own Vince Ferrara. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks, CJ. Have a good one.
You too. There you hear from Vince Ferrara. I just want to say before we leave, we're down to 2 minutes in the program. Next week, there'll be no show. No Talking Sports with CJ and Fonz. I know, cancel your plan. I mean, you can make plans now. Go Halloween, go trick-or-treating, take your kids trick-or-treating, go parties. I was going to break out a Batman costume if we had a show last week, but not going to happen next week. The following week, November 7th, we're going to have on Kawika Mitchell, ex-USF linebacker, also member of the 2007 New York Giants Super Bowl team. He was a starting weak side linebacker. November 14th, we're going to have on Brett Boone, ex-Seattle Mariner from the Boone family. I believe 3-time All-Star, second baseman of the 2001 Mariners. And November 21st, we'll have Denny McLain, last guy to win 30 games as a pitcher for the Tigers in 1968. And November 28th, for all you Steeler fans, we're going to have on Levon Kirkland. Big old Levon Kirkland, November 28th. So it's going to be some great programs coming up in the next few weeks. So I'm CJ. I want to say get well to Fonz and have a happy Halloween. We'll see you all in 2 weeks. Go Bears.